That came out of nowhere. Um, but what was I saying? Yeah, it's not seeing. Repent is the idea of not seeing things the way God sees them. It doesn't mean that you don't ever sin, or you don't struggle with the sin, or you don't fall into sin. Remember, the righteous man stumbles 7 times yet gets back up. The trick is we got to get back up and keep going, and in our faith. But these people we saw in chapter 9 did not repent. They did not want to change. They don't want to see things the way God sees them. And then we see another mighty angel of the same kind. That's the idea. I saw another mighty angel of the same kind coming down from heaven. Wow. Now, who is this angel? Now, let's look at this. He was robed in a cloud. Okay. That sounds kind of interesting, right? Jesus went up transfigured in a what? Cloud. Okay. So there's the idea of Jesus being surrounded by a cloud with a rainbow. We get the idea of Noah right off the bat, right? Noah should come to your mind. Did it come to anybody's mind? Did anybody think of Noah right off the bat? Come on now. Okay, above his head. His face was like that of the sun. Rainbow, by the way, is kind of the promise, right? Yeah, I always think of that, the promise of God. Above his head, his face was like the sun. Now, I kind of think I'm kind of thinking through who this is going to be, so I just want to pick your guys' brains too. But this is kind of my thinking. Rainbow has to do with Noah, right? Kind of the flood, the promise of God, the promise to the world that God would not destroy the world with a flood again. You kind of get that idea. His face was like the sun. We get kind of an idea of that being Jesus during, I'm thinking of the Transfiguration right off the top of my head. I also think of Moses when he came down from Mount Sinai, that his face was glowing. But the Transfiguration definitely associates the brightness of the sun with Christ as well. We see also it says, and his legs were are like fiery pillars. Now, what's that kind of an idea of? Fiery pillars, fiery pillars. Let's see. The Lord led out Israel into the wilderness, right? In a cloud and in a kind of fiery pillar. Whoa, that's kind of interesting too, right? So, by the way, good morning, everybody. I didn't say good morning, I don't think. But does that make sense? Anyway, you get the idea there too, right? A kind of fiery pillar. And then a cloud leading the people of Israel. So you get a lot of, I guess, ideas of Old Testament pictures right now and some New Testament pictures right now. And it says he was holding a little scroll. Is that the same scroll from chapter 5? The scroll that Jesus took, that is going to be, is that a different one? This seems to indicate a different one from chapter 5. This one is intended to be eaten, where the other one was intended to be read. We're going to find that out. So that's kind of interesting about that. Let's see. And it says he was holding a little scroll which lay open in his hand, and he planted his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and he gave a loud shout like the roar of a lion. Wow. Okay. So he has one foot on the sea and one foot on the land. Now, when I think of this, I think of, God having dominion, or this angel kind of sets up himself, right? The servant of God as this, like we're taking over this whole thing, the sea and the land. And I kind of like that because, man, there is such a need for us as human beings to have security. And, when the sea or the land aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, it becomes absolutely scary. I was in an earthquake in Northridge back in, I think it was 94. And when you're on the epicenter of an earthquake that big, it's a little different than when you're kind of like 30 miles away or 50 miles away and you feel it. When you're on the epicenter, it's radical. It's the amount of powers you can't even I can't even fathom it. Your brain literally goes on tilt, and it's super crazy to think of. When the land or the sea get out of whack. I remember surfing in Morro Bay, up in kind of mid-range California, and it was super cold. We wanted to go there during a winter swell. It was a pretty good sized day. We heard sharks were out. We were scared to death. And I remember me and a friend went out there and just seeing the big waves, just being out there and seeing just the amount of power that these waves had. And the way the ocean looked in the morning, the way just how crazy it was and just how dominant it was, it makes you just think, wow, just think of if you saw a rogue wave or something crazy out in the middle of the sea, just some gigantic beastly wave. It just, it's like your heart just stops. We need security. And I love this picture of the angel kind of taking charge of the sea and of the land, setting his foot there in those places, because those places are going to have such unrest coming up. We're going to see that the Antichrist is going to come, and the false prophet are going to be seen coming out of the sea and out of the land, and there's going to be such unrest amongst the earth that it's great to know that God is in control. And even when our personal lives, gosh, if the unveiling of all of who we are in the inner person were to be revealed, everything of our yuck, and it would be quite a scary moment for sure. To know that everything would be revealed and everything will be revealed can be just like a wow moment, and to know that God is there for us, and he knows our frailty. And I think of King David, who just bore out his frailty before God, knowing that his world, right? The analogy I'm pointing is the land and the sea. His world, his foundations were rocked by his own sin, just like you, by your own sin. If you only knew your own sin, that's the crazy part, is a lot of us aren't even aware of our sinful yuck. But when King David saw in his moments of quietness, in his moments where it was just him and his music, right? And he remembered, he said, God, hide me from my secret faults, right? Deliver me from the things that rock me inside, for I am unmovable. I cannot even move. He found himself so depressed, where he says, when I kept silent, my bones just broke. He needed confession. He needed outlet with God. And even though he saw his enemies would use his ill behavior and against him and would come at him, he saw that the world did not care if he was in a vulnerable position. They would want to come at him more and more. That he found a refuge in God. And many people, even in God's camp in David's day, looked at David and rejected him and said, nah, God can't love a dude like that. That guy's not good. Look at what he's done. And so many, you think of what would happen in the church if the church were to know everything about you. So many of us would look at one another and judge one another instead of look at each other with grace, and look at each other with mercy. And, that's hard for us to do. Hard for us to have mercy. Hard for us to have grace. Why? Because of super duper pride. We are riddled with it, Batman. It's just something that happens. But, man, those that God loved were people that favored King David, that came alongside King David and encouraged him and wanted to help him. And those Jonathans, who Jonathan knew him up and down and knew his frailty. Do you have a Jonathan in your life? Do you have someone that you could talk to? Someone you could go to? So important, right? Absolutely. So important in your life. So we see that this angel stands on this foundation, right? This firm foundation, the earth and the sea that is going to be shaken, but he stands on it. Now, who is this angel? I just want to say, hey, I kind of look at, I know people have seen it Jesus and people have seen it I don't know and that kind of thing. I kind of look at it a little bit like Michael the archangel in a way. And I kind of do, even though I know he's going to come up here pretty soon with fighting the devil here in the next couple chapters. Michael the archangel is an angel, and he's an archangel of God. He's an archangel of God that we know that is a person who stands up and defends Israel in the Old Testament in the book of Daniel. He's the prince of the people of Israel, and he's a mighty defender in the spiritual world of that country. And that's kind of how the Bible puts it. Some old writings, I guess, of rabbis even think that when it says Moses talked to God on Mount Sinai and there was a mediator, an angel, that might have been Michael. Whether it is or not, I don't know. But you get the idea that this person is close to God, absolutely, if not Jesus himself here, roaring like a lion, Jesus, the lion of the tribe of Judah. But I get the idea, too, that this is really a preparation for Israel during this time. This is really kind of this idea before the bowl judgments happen, where you're going to see this interlude and you're going to see that God is again working within the people of Israel. He sealed the people of Israel. He's working within that people. And this is the time of Jacob's trouble that's going to be happening on Israel. This is going to be the fulfillment of the book of Daniel in the last 7 years that have been appointed for the Gentile rulership over the people of Israel, and meaning non-Jewish kind of oppressors that are going to come. The Antichrist is going to be this kind of idea of this oppressor, right? Just as Babylon was, the Medes and the Persians were, the Grecian Empire was, and there's many others too, the Ottoman Empire. So that definitely took charge of those areas. But you kind of get the idea here, or I do, that maybe Michael's involved in one of these angels as well. Now it says when he shouted, the voices of the seven thunders spoke. And when the seven thunders spoke, I was about to write, but I heard from the heaven saying, seal up what the seven thunders have said and do not write it down. This reminds me a little bit of the book of Daniel, by the way. There's a reference here to that kind of idea of seal up the vision, Daniel, till the latter days. What does this mean? Well, I think my application this morning, just in Devo style, is that there are some things that just need to be not known. And I think about this too, just in my personal life. There's things that, and my friendships life too, is, there's things that I need to know, and there's other things I don't need to know. And I don't need to know everything about everyone, and anything, just about everybody's life, and that's okay. John, I'm sure, wanted to write something down because I'm sure it was pretty radical, whatever was said. But he doesn't. Instead, he just remains silent, just doesn't say anything. And am I that kind of person that am I okay with just silence? Am I okay with not knowing? Am I okay with just understanding what's revealed and being like, hey, that's enough? Or am I the type of person with someone that I have to pry and try to get more and more out of them? Maybe even without them wanting to talk about it or get more in depth. And I kind of like the patience of John here, of just we don't see him arguing about this or anything like that. He just hears from heaven, don't write it down. You're not supposed to know this. And he does it. And so, maybe today I need to remember that, hey, God is in control. Certainly I see that here. And I certainly understand that God is, gosh, He's the only foundation that we can stand on, really. He's the only same yesterday, today, and forever. Um, he is the only solid foundation. Everything else is sinking sand, as the song says. Um, and then I think about this morning too, just making sure that I am respectful of people and what they want to maybe remain silent, and that's okay. And just respect those things about people. That distance that needs to be, um, at a time. So those are some things I get out of it. It's such a cool passage. There's so many neat things to talk about in it. There's so many references to the Old Testament. You can just kind of bathe in here for such a long time. And I love this idea that this angel swears to God. That's why some people obviously think it's not Jesus, right? Because he's swearing to God. Why would God swear to God? Well, I get the idea that nothing's wrong with Jesus praying to his Father. So if it's Jesus, I don't see a real big problem with that kind of thinking. But you definitely get this idea that he raises his right hand to heaven and he swears by him who lives forever and ever, who created the heavens and all that is in them, and the earth and all that is in it, and the sea that is, so you get the idea that he's worshiping God as the creator, and I can understand that maybe this isn't Jesus, maybe this is someone else that has the same relationship, like a relationship to the Old Testament saints, these references that are here. Maybe it's something like that. So there's a lot to be said here. But notice what it says, there will be no more delay. Woo! Right? In the days when the seventh angel is about to sound the trumpet, the mystery of God will be accomplished. Hey, have you ever had a mystery with God? Like, have you ever thought about a mystery with God? Man, that's always true, right? There's always things that we look at God and we go, man, that's a mystery. Grace is a mystery. Did you know that? The way that God could have grace on us, that's a mystery. That's amazing, right? But the unveiling of God's work in the world. So we'll maybe pick up on that tomorrow too and just contemplate that a little bit in our devos. So remember, He's got the whole world in his hands once again, the sea and the land, and everything else might be shaking and falling, but as King David, so eloquently put it, that he will trust in the Lord, and he will wait on the Lord, and for anything, vindication, for whatever he needs, and then we see that wonderful application too, just to be patient and wait, and to be thoughtful towards others. So hopefully you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. It's been great going through the book of Revelation. So fun in Devo style too. I've never done it in Devo style, so this is kind of unique and fun. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great one, okay? And enjoy Arvo Part, P-A-R-T. Okay, bye-bye.